Was I wrong for what I did? Honestly, I've been replaying that night in my head for weeks, maybe months now, and I still can't quite figure it out. All I know is that at 2 a.m., after seeing a brand new BMW with a giant red bow on it in my sister's driveway, knowing full well I had just been handed a measly $2, I packed a bag, walked out, and blocked my entire family. Tell me, would you have done the same thing, or did I overact? Because in that moment, sitting there in the dark, watching the headlights of my Uber fade into the distance, I felt a kind of freedom mixed with a profound aching sorrow that I hadn't known was possible. It was the end of one life and the beginning of another, all because of a luxury car and $2. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the BMW, before the 2Ls, before the seismic shift in my family dynamics that no one, especially not my parents, ever saw coming. My sister Clara and I are only 2 years apart. Growing up, we were inseparable, or at least that's how I remember in the hazy, rose-tinted glow of childhood memories. But even then, looking back, I can pinpoint the subtle cracks, the tiny fissures that would eventually split our family wide open. Clara was always the golden child. She was naturally beautiful, effortlessly charming, and everything she touched seemed to turn to gold. Or more accurately, everything my parents touched for her seemed to turn to gold. I, on the other hand, was more of the quiet, studious type. I loved books, spent hours in my room drawing, and preferred the company of my own thoughts to large social gatherings. I wasn't unpopular, but I certainly wasn't the magnetic force that Clara was. Our parents, bless their hearts, never explicitly said they had a favorite, but their actions spoke volumes louder than any words ever could. Clara's achievements, no matter how small, were celebrated with fanfare, while mine, often bigger and harder, were met with a casual nod or a hurried, "That's nice, dear." When Clara got an A on a test, it was ice cream and a new toy. When I got an A, it was, "Good job. Keep it up." This pattern continued throughout our lives. Clara wanted a new dress. She got it. I needed new shoes for school. We'd wait for a sale. It was never about grand, malicious acts of favoritism, but a slow, steady drip of small preferences that eroded my sense of worth within the family. I learned to minimize my needs, to expect less, to become fiercely independent, because I knew if I wanted something, I had to get it myself. Clara, on the other hand, just had to express a desire, and it would magically appear. Fast forward to college. Clara decided to major in something she was passionate about, which changed every semester, racking up significant student debt that my parents happily co-signed for. They even paid for her living expenses, her sorority fees, and her lavish trips abroad. They said she needed to experience life, and that money shouldn't be a barrier to her dreams. Meanwhile, I worked 2 part-time jobs all through high school and college, saved every penny, and took out modest loans to fund my degree in engineering, a field I genuinely loved and excelled in. I graduated with honors, a job offer waiting, and significantly less debt than Clara, largely because I was determined not to burden my parents, who always reminded me how tight money was. Yet they never seemed too tight when it came to Clara's latest whim. After graduation, I moved into a small, affordable apartment focused on my career and continued to build my financial independence. Clara, after several false starts in various careers, eventually landed a dream job that she claimed was high-paying but seemed to come with an endless need for financial assistance from our parents. They bought her a new car when her old one broke down, a perfectly good used sedan, but still a gift. They helped with her rent when she claimed her startup wasn't paying her enough. They were always there, a financial safety net woven exclusively for her. I never asked for anything, and I rarely received anything unsolicited. I told myself it was fine, that I was proud of my independence. But a tiny, neglected part of me always wondered why I wasn't worthy of the same consideration, the same generosity, the same outright love that manifested in tangible ways for Clara. Then came the big family dinner. It was Clara's 30th birthday. Mine had passed 6 months earlier with a nice dinner at a local restaurant and a card with a thoughtful, but ultimately generic message. For Clara's 30th, my parents had been hinting at something special for weeks. My mother would call me practically giddy talking about Clara's big surprise. I tried to be happy for her, I really did. I convinced myself that this was just how our family operated, and I should just accept it. The dinner itself was at a fancy, upscale restaurant that I knew my parents considered a huge splurge, the kind of place they'd only go for truly momentous occasions. Clara was glowing, basking in the attention, dropping hints about something huge happening. My father kept winking at my mother, and they both looked like cats who had swallowed canaries. I felt a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. I knew what this meant. It meant I was about to witness another grand gesture of their affection for Clara, and I would be relegated to the role of observer, a quiet accessory to her celebration. And that's exactly what happened. After the main course, my father stood up, cleared his throat, and gave a long, rambling speech about how proud they were of Clara, how much she deserved all the good things in life, and how she was finally finding her true path. My mother, tearing up, pulled out a small, elegantly wrapped box. Clara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Inside the box was a single car key attached to a sleek, modern keychain with the BMW logo. The collective gasp from the small family gathering, which included an aunt, an uncle, and our grandmother, was almost comical. Clara started crying. Happy tears, of course. My parents beamed. My father then announced, and it's parked right outside, "Clara, beer, a brand new X5 just for you." Everyone cheered, hugged Clara, and congratulated my parents on their incredible generosity. I sat there, a forced smile plastered on my face, my stomach churning. I felt like I was watching a scene unfold in a movie, completely disconnected from my own reality. It was a beautiful car, I had to admit. Expensive, luxurious, the kind of car I dreamed of owning someday, after years of hard work and saving. And there it was, a gift for Clara. I caught my mother's eye across the table. She gave me a quick, almost apologetic smile, then turned back to fuss over Clara. My father, in his post-grand reveal euphoria, finally turned to me. "Oh, And for you, son, he said, reaching into his wallet and pulling out a crisp $2 bill. Here's a little something for your troubles. We know how much you appreciate practical gifts. He laughed, and my mother joined in, as if this was the funniest joke in the world. I stared at the $2 bill in his outstretched hand. $2, a brand new BMW X5 for Clara, and $2 for me. It wasn't about the money itself. It was about the staggering, almost insulting disparity. It was about what that $2 represented my worth in their eyes, compared to hers. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being overlooked, of having my efforts minimized, of being treated as an afterthought. I took the 2 L's, still smiling, my jaw tight. Thank you, Dad. I managed to say, my voice sounding strangely hollow even in my own ears. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I stood there, $2,000 in my pocket, the image of that shiny BMW with the giant red bow burned into my mind. My parents, completely oblivious to the earthquake rumbling beneath my calm exterior, were still celebrating Clara's extravagant gift. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted them? Would you have swallowed your pride? Or would you have done something drastic? Because for me, in that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was a profound sense of clarity. A quiet realization that I had spent my entire life trying to earn their love, their approval, their recognition, and it was never going to happen. I was fighting a losing battle, and I was tired. Tired of pretending it didn't hurt. Tired of making excuses for them. Tired of being the strong, independent one who didn't need anything while Clara was showered with everything she desired. I excused myself from the table, claiming a sudden, my parents, caught up in the excitement, barely noticed. Clara? Too wrapped up in her new car and the attention, just waved a dismissive hand. I went to the restroom, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at my reflection. My eyes were red, but I wasn't crying. There was a steely resolve I hadn't seen before. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep playing this role. I went back to the table, finished my dessert, and participated in the polite chatter, all the while a plan was forming in my mind. A plan that was equal parts impulsive and long overdue. When the dinner finally wrapped up, everyone spilled outside to admire Clara's new ride. There it was, gleaming under the streetlights, that pristine white BMW X5, a colossal red bow tied to its hood. Clara practically skipped around it, already posting pictures to social media. My parents stood beside her, beaming with pride, basking in her joy. I just watched, a silent observer. I congratulated Clara again, gave my parents a quick hug, and said my goodbyes, telling them I was tired and heading home. They barely registered my departure. As I drove my modest 10-year-old sedan home, the $2 bill still in my pocket, I felt a strange mix of emptiness and determination. The feeling solidified as I walked into my apartment. This was it. The final straw. The moment that clarified everything. I knew I couldn't stay in their orbit, constantly being diminished, constantly being compared, constantly being reminded of my secondary status. I pulled out my largest suitcase and started packing. Not everything, just the essentials clothes, my laptop, important documents, my favorite books, a few sentimental items. I worked quickly, methodically, my mind surprisingly clear. As I packed, I thought about all the times I had tried to talk to them, to express my feelings about the favoritism, only to be dismissed. You're imagining things, my mother would say. We'll love you both equally. Clara just needs a little more help, my father would add. Their words, hollow and insincere, echoed in my mind. I was tired of being gaslit. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I finished. I called an Uber, setting the pickup location a few blocks away, just in case my parents, by some bizarre chance, decided to check on me. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a clean break. As I waited, I pulled out my phone. I went to my parents' contacts, my sisters, and even my aunt and uncles. One by one, I blocked them. Every single one. It felt surreal, like I was watching my own hand move detached from my body. But with each block, a small, tight knot in my chest loosened. It wasn't an act of revenge, not really. It was an act of self-preservation. I needed to protect myself from the continuous pain, the constant disappointment. I needed to create a boundary, a wall, that they had consistently refused to acknowledge. When the Uber notification came, I grabbed my suitcase, took one last look around the apartment that I had meticulously paid for and furnished myself, and walked out. The night air was cool and crisp. I got into the back of the car, gave the driver my destination, a friend's spare room a few towns over, a place I had arranged weeks ago as a contingency plan, though I never thought I'd actually use it. As the car pulled away, I glanced back at my building. Then at the empty road ahead, it was 2 a.m. The city was quiet, save for the hum of the engine and the distant wail of a siren. I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation, tinged with a deep, unexpected sadness. This wasn't how I had envisioned my relationship with my family. This wasn't the fairy tale ending. But it was my reality I had chosen myself. The next few days were a blur of new routines, new spaces, and a surprising amount of peace. My friend Mark was understanding and didn't press for details, just offered his support. I knew the calls would come eventually, the texts, the voicemails. They'd probably start with concern, then move to anger, then maybe, just maybe, a sliver of understanding. But I wasn't there to hear it. I was in my own bubble, building a new foundation. I kept my phone off for the first 24 hours. When I finally turned it on, it was a torrent. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, texts. My mother's messages started with, "Are you okay? Where are you?" And quickly descended into, "How could you do this? Your sister is heartbroken." My father's were more direct. "This is unacceptable. Come home now and apologize." Clara's were a mix of hurt and righteous indignation. "What is your problem? You always have to make everything about you." None of them mentioned the BMW or the two. None of them acknowledged the decades of subtle and not so subtle favoritism. It was all about my perceived transgression, my abandonment. It confirmed everything I already knew. They genuinely couldn't see it. They couldn't see the pattern, couldn't understand why I had reached my breaking point. They were so deeply entrenched in their narrative of Clara as the deserving one and me as the independent one that any deviation from that narrative was simply inconceivable. I read them all, a strange calm washing over me. There was no rage, no desire to respond. Just a profound sense of finality. I deleted the messages without replying, then switched my phone back to silent. I knew this wasn't a temporary thing. This was a fundamental shift. I needed space to heal, to redefine my sense of family, to build relationships with people who saw me, truly saw me, for who I was, not for what role I played in someone else's story. I continued to work, focused on my career, and started investing in new friendships, building a chosen family. It was hard and sometimes lonely, but it was also incredibly empowering. I was finally in control of my own narrative. The $2 bill, I still have it. It's tucked away in a drawer, a stark reminder of the night I chose myself, the night I walked away from a family that couldn't or wouldn't see my worth. It's a memento not of bitterness, but of the moment I learned to stand up for myself, even if it meant standing alone. So here I am now, living my life, building my future, completely disconnected from the family I grew up in. Sometimes I wonder if they ever truly understood what they lost, or if they just continued to resent me for daring to challenge their skewed reality. The truth is, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I found my own peace, my own happiness, and my own sense of worth. Independent of their approval, it was a painful lesson, but an essential one. I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is to walk away from those who continuously dim your light. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Would you have done what I did, or would you have found a different path? I'll see you all in the next story.